right. Well, hello, Farm Bureau members. I am here with Representative Mike Chapman and Representative Tom Dent. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking some time. I know this is the start of floor session is about to take off for the next few weeks, so I know this can be a busy time. So thank you for giving us some time and talking with our members. Very much appreciated.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, I'm honored to be here.
Well, one of the things that I know Farm Bureau has been tracking closely this year has been the riparian buffer issue. I know it started out as a piece of legislation and then moved into more of a budget proviso format. Tell us a little bit from your perspective, what was the work going into this? How did it take place? What has been the journey of this bill and now into its current format?
Well, first, maybe folks need to, I'm the chair of the House Ag and Natural Resource Committee, and Tom's the ranking member. But we kind of approached this session with the idea that we were going to, in essence, co-chair the committee, work together on a bipartisan basis. I'm a Democrat from the coast. Tom's a Republican from Eastern Washington, but we have a lot more in common. But we really wanted to work, and put the ag issues and the natural resource issues front and center, but also work in a collaborative approach. And so for Tom and I think, this has been an interest, it's not always kind of put on the table ahead of time that we're going to work in a collaboration. And I really appreciated Tom's leadership as the ranking member. He's been a great partner, and we've had a great, we've done some good things out of committee this year.
Yeah, we haven't, we've been able to really just overcome partisan issues, and we made that decision. We will not be a partisan committee, and we have not been. And the really exciting part about this is our committee members have come right along with us, and they're working hand in hand with each other, just as Mike and I are working together. So it's been an incredible journey. And we both enjoyed it a lot, at least ways I have. And we went to a conference in South Carolina just before session began, and we were both there, and we talked a lot about what we wanted this to be, and we haven't missed a beat. It has been exactly what we envisioned, so it's been exciting.
Piece of legislation was introduced in front of the committee, and we were virtual last year, and so it made it really difficult to kind of realize quickly that piece of legislation just had no pathway forward. It was way too top down, way too regulatory. Would have really obliterated small ag, especially in Western Washington, but small ag around the state. So this year I think Tom and I kind of went in and saying, how could we do this in a way that would, first of all, let's get ag at the table. But let's get our tribal partners at the table. Let's get other folks at the table and really begin to collaborate and find the areas of agreement. And I think, Tom's perspective from an ag community, from Eastern Washington as a rancher, his involvement, Representative Kretz's involvement, the folks that represent the heart of agriculture in our state, their perspective was invaluable. Farm Bureau obviously played a huge role in your President Mosby, also working with a tribal leader in my district, Chairman Ron Allen from the Jamestown tribe. I think if you spoke with them, you'd find that they found, they developed a great friendship and found a lot more in agreement, just like Tom and I are finding a lot more in agreement.
Yeah. And the thing is one size doesn't fit all across the state. What might work in one county of the state or one part of the state doesn't work in another. And all the legislation we looked at before was one size fits all. And we knew that we had to do something different. So we sat down at the drawing board and we brought in our stakeholders. And actually, the stakeholders wrote the bill and did an outstanding job, and the Farm Bureau, the tribes, and others. So you just, so it would work for all of us, It's an exciting piece of legislation. I'm sorry that it got installed, but it's...
Well, so tell me a little bit, where is it at currently? What is the current position or posture of it?
So one thing I'm proud of is that, Tom and I delivered, an 11-0 vote out of committee in working collaboratively. And we had some amazing, we had two great public hearings, and really some emotion was put on the record, I think, from ag and tribes, and they began to listen to each other. So we delivered a good piece of legislation. Through this, they say that, this place isn't about, it's where bills go to die, it's where legislation dies. So, moved on to the next step at the budget committee, at the capital budget, and it didn't quite, they didn't have enough time. One of the things the process happened, we passed it out on maybe on a Friday, and then the capital budget might have three meetings to look at, all the legislation that came their way. So, they couldn't move it out of committee, but through the work that we did and the 11-0 vote, we've worked, there's a budget proviso. So there's funding, $50 million worth of funding to really for the next 2 years kind of take the language of our legislation and fund it. And the idea would be to build momentum to see, does this program work? Are people, it is voluntary. And, voluntary was key to this guy.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you were adamant on voluntary.
It's so much easier to get you to do something when you want to do it than it is to tell you to do it and punish you if you don't. And we knew that. We knew how farmers and ranchers are. They're type A personalities. They're independent. They're salt of the earth. They're the basics of this country. They are. They're willing to do something when they know it's the right thing to do. Yeah. And so is my friend Mike here. He's salt of the earth. I'm telling you. So.
Well. So one of the things, you kind of started answering that second question. So, Representative Chapman, you are the chair of the Agriculture and Natural Resource Committee, Representative as the ranking member. This committee, almost what we have seen, almost unprecedented goodwill and bipartisanship within that committee. We've seen Republicans and Democrats working side by side and seeming to enjoy the working together. We've seen farmers sitting next to tribal representatives and praising the work of each other. This is almost unprecedented. How do you develop that level of goodwill within a committee structure? How do you, one, develop that, but then moving forward into the next months and even future sessions, how do you build on that?
You have to set an example. We set the example. I mean, we're friends. We like each other, number one, okay, even before we got to this position. But we set that example, and we conveyed that to the committee members and to the legislature. We're going to be bipartisan. We are committed to working together and do the right thing because you know what? All of us here like to eat. This is the Agriculture Committee, right? So it wasn't all that hard to do this, right? Because we're all looking at a common goal.
I think you raised there were a couple maybe key moments. I think early on, a committee we had new members. I remember, we have my Republican friends generally are all from rural areas, but I'm one of the few rural Democrats here in Olympia, and so the rest of the committee, the rest of my Democratic caucus on the committee, you're talking representatives from Kirkland and South Tacoma and Bothell area, so kind of the heart of maybe what would view as the I-5 corridor, and we had Federal Way was represented, then up in the San Juan Islands, and so areas that may not have a natural connection to the farmland, to agri issues, but I think in Tom and I working through it, I think what was heartening to see, a lot of times in committee. There's questions from the committee members, and kind of maybe the Democrat will ask a question from this angle, and then the Republican feels like, well, I got to ask a question. Many times in our committee hearings, most of the time, and certainly toward our committee was kind of trying to get to the right answer. And really, if Tom would ask a question, then maybe Representative Lacana, who's a Democrat from San Juan County, she would ask a follow-up question, helping to get to the point that Tom was making. There was none of that left, right. Even in our seating patterns, we were kind of seating all around each other. And that, that's the leadership that Tom brought to it and that I tried to bring to it too. There was a key moment too, and I think you want to talk about something that's probably unprecedented in Olympia. There was a bill, it was a wolf management bill. It was very important to Representative Kretz from Northeast Washington, where they have a plethora of wolves and predation and livestock issues. Representative Kretz brought a bill. We had the hearing. It was an okay hearing. I wouldn't say it was everybody singing off the same page. There wasn't a kumbaya moment. It was people coming at it from two different points of view. And it would be a bill that normally maybe there'd be a little division on the committee. So we were in a caucus. Usually when you caucus, Tom takes the Republicans to a private room. I take the Democrats. I don't know why we do that. I think it's kind of stupid, but again, on a committee like ours. But Representative Kretz came up to me and said, "Can I join your Democratic caucus for a minute and just talk from my heart?" I didn't even think about it, but I realized later, holy smokes, I've never been invited to a Republican caucus to talk from my heart. That's really unique. caucus meetings are generally. So Representative Kretz, and I don't want to speak for him. I want to tell you what I saw as the chair. Representative Kretz came in, basically said, look, this bill, here's why it's important to me. I'm not asking you to vote for it. I'm not asking for any of you to vote for it. I just want you to know. And it was powerful. I mean, there wasn't a dry eye in the committee. He said, I just want to know from my heart why I brought this bill forward. I'm not trying to jam you. I'm not trying to put you guys in a bad position. And honestly, all I wanted you to know was what my heart was, not that I'm trying to play political games on an issue that for some of you is going to be a very difficult issue. And they all but said, I get it if none of you can vote for this, but I wanted you to. And when he walks out, I mean, I kind of looked around the committee and they looked back at me and they're like, we're moving that bill. We're moving that bill because it was kind of anyway, that was a really powerful, it was a really powerful moment and everybody held firm. Again, a bill we moved out, it died at the next committee level and that's on them. But we did our job in that moment. And that's what I think maybe some of your members want to know is that, there are some of us down here trying to work on these issues. And I don't know how you saw that.
And this is a prime example of how what we do here, the legislation we put together, the bills we run, affect lives and families and futures. And that's what it did. And that's why there wasn't a dry eye there, because they got it. Everybody understood. This is affecting somebody's future. And that's why I'm so proud of what we've done to this point, because we've done some good things in this committee that affects the future of agriculture, the future of our families, and the children and the grandchildren that are coming that are going to be part of agriculture. So this is what it's about. And when we can share our hearts with each other openly and not be worried about any kind of retaliation, that's when it starts to work. And that's why it's working.
One of the members on the committee, the morning of the vote, I went to one particular member and I'm like, this whole bill's up. You don't have to vote. I get it if for your district. And the member looked at me and just said, my district likes to eat steak too. and it was like, okay, kind of putting the other issues aside. The reality was we're trying to make it so that the ranchers can continue to bring good high quality beef to market. And I think all that we've done throughout for all the issues, we've looked at how do we make sure that Washington, how many crops do we lead the country in production? And we're number 2. I mean, it's about 14 different crops. I don't think people realize we literally lead the country. We're number 1 or number 2 in about 14, 15 crops. It's feeding the world what we do here in Washington State. And I think Tom and I think there's an immense amount of responsibility and respect and a weight on our shoulders to make sure we get this right.
You're right. We are also the most trade-dependent state in the nation, so that plays into it too. And our biggest commodity is agriculture.
Yes. Well, are there any particular, other than we talked about the riparian bill, but are there any other pieces of legislation at this point in the process that our members can be watching or should keeping an eye on?
Talk about the fuel
Surcharge on agriculture that because of the Climate Commitment Act, which has raised the fuel price of our farm fuel, and they're supposed to be getting a rebate of that because ecology, and they should be working with the Department of Revenue. I'm not sure if they are or not, but are supposed to be working on how we can rebate this excess charge to our growers and farmers across the state. So that's one that we'd really like to get done, because it's a load. It's a load on our farmers.
Well, how can across the board, how can agriculture help you? Help you as legislators, help you as members of the House Agriculture Committee? How can agriculture be a support to your work?
When folks weigh in on their opinions and how they feel about different pieces of legislation, that's important. When they weigh in about things they see in the future that they'd like us to deal with, that's really important, so we know, what we should tackle, what's the next bill we should tackle, the next issue. That all this helps a lot, and stay in contact. I mean, Farm Bureau, the stakeholders, they are our stakeholders. I mean, it's the cattlemen or the Farm Bureau or whomever, and we need to know where they stand and what they're looking at. And it's good to hear from more than just a few, to reach out to way out to your membership, and everybody's opinion counts, and that's what's important.
I would argue this is my seventh year here. Clearly, under the new leadership of the Farm Bureau, President Mosby, your vice presidents, your staff, your new staff, Farm Bureau, I would say you're back at the table. I think for a few years, I think just for whatever reasons, Farm Bureau and some of the issues they raised, it was maybe too easy for Olympia to kind of marginalize them as an extremist on some extreme positions on some issues. Farm Bureau's back at the table. They're one, and you've moved the needle this year. The advocacy has been different. When farmers have showed up, they've come with clear, concise, requests, but they've also showed respect and deference to the legislative process instead of just being, animosity. I think they're building relationship across the aisle. And I think that you'll see, yesterday in the Transportation Committee, we moved a bill out that's going to be really good for our milk haulers to allow them to expand the size of the amount of milk they can haul in a single load. A bill like that a year ago, 2 years ago, probably didn't even see the light of day. It's little things like that. We extended some tax breaks for our agricultural partners earlier this session, widely bipartisan vote. Maybe that bill a few years ago would have had a more difficult time. So I think it's the partnership of Representative Dent and myself and the committee. I think we've helped, but you have done that, and the leadership, and the leadership of Farm Bureau being here. You're on the ground lobbyists, Bree. President Mosby. And just you're back at the table, and you're one of the and that's good. That's good for. It's good for the ag community. I don't know how you.
Yes, it is. It's just great. It really is, Rob. There was a time when I thought Farm Bureau was the greatest organization you could belong to in the state of Washington. And there was a time not so much. But you're coming back, and you're coming back strong, and you're coming back positive, and I'm excited to see that.
Well, just as a final question, is there...
And we weren't paid to say that.
we should perhaps wrap there. I was like, all right, we're done. That's what I wanted. But is there we've got farmers and ranchers who listen to this. Some are watching live now, others that may be watching it as a recording. But just an opportunity to speak directly to a farmer or a rancher in our state. What would you say?
I'll just say this, that my wife was the daughter of a Montana wheat farmer. So I've lived this my entire married life. I didn't come from a farming family, but I married into one. If people wonder, well, why does a Democrat from Port Angeles, Washington, even care? Well, there's a lot of reasons why I care. And in where I live, timber country, that's a crop too, and salmon and shellfish. And so I live natural resource and extraction industry all the time. But I think I've walked away from working with Representative Dent and the other members of the committee, working with the Farm Bureau, listening, trying to listen. I know I'm a politician. We don't listen so good, but all the committee hearings, I just want to say that there are times when maybe Tom and I are like, well, we're really, this job's a grind. But what you all do as farmers, ranchers, and how, many of you are working 2 and 3 jobs. You're trying to read an article recently about an Iowa farmer who also has him and his wife have jobs in town because, as he says, my kids always need shoes whether the crop came in or not. And my wife lived that with her dad. There were times crop didn't come in. So just there's a respect. We're all really ready to willing to roll up our sleeves and work, but you're rolling up your sleeves going to work every day and feeding the world. And in a time of perilous, social economic.
Because it's not what it is. It's a way of life, a way to produce, and the feeling you get when you do produce things and you do for other people. I've been involved somewhere around agriculture all my life. Even when I flew airplanes, that was my day job, but it was most of the time it was flying spray planes, which has a lot to do with agriculture. And and acquiring the ranch came a little later in life for me. I had to save my nickels to do that. I understand that, but I know how the passion you feel when you do, and you have that piece of land and it's producing something and you give it back. But what I want to say is both Representative Chapman and I are dedicated to doing the right thing in our committee. And if we run across hiccups and bumps in the road, we want to fix them And we have a couple of trips planned in the coming interim to get out and see some folks in agriculture and see what we can do and see what is really needed and see how we can make things better for them. And we're committed to doing that together, and I'm actually looking forward to it. So.
All right. Gentlemen, thank you both. I really appreciate both of you taking some time with us, talking to our members. It means a lot. Thank you for your leadership and the example that you're both setting. So it really means a lot.
Well, thank you for giving us this time to say a few words, and more to come. You know, this partnership isn't going to end anytime soon, and looking forward to we're going to finish strong and fight hard for the issues in the budget that we care about. And,
Yeah, we're committed.
We truly are.
yeah.